What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Napoleon Total War online commentary video. It's been a quick second since I posted the last video. If you haven't seen it already, go ahead and check it out. It's on the channel. We are now up to 7 videos on this humble little channel. Started out as a side project during the COVID days, and I grew to enjoy it, so I figured that I'd continue doing it as long as the time allowed me to. As evidenced by the previous video from the one before that, where 3 months had passed before I had posted the video. So I'm not looking at making any sort of little side hustle out of this gig. This is just something fun to do, and as long as people keep watching it, even if it's only 10 people that watch these films or these video clips rather, then I'll keep making them because they're a lot of fun for me. Well, I appreciate everybody watching the last video. We are returning to the battlefield, so I hope everybody has brought their heavy coats because today is going to be a cold one. And this guy here, poor soul, does not look like he has a lot of warm clothing on. So we're gonna sit back in our comfy chairs in the middle of the summer and watch one of these winter battles unfold here. We are playing here on the Pyrenees Peaks map. I am returning to command the field today with an old friend of mine. His name is Clarkimedes. He is returning to fight for the Austrian Empire. You'll recall Clarkimedes fighting alongside me, actually on my left flank, during that crazy battle at the Pyramids. This is a mess. The Austrians are in full retreat. A few videos back. If you haven't seen that one, go ahead and check that out. That's probably the most climactic battle that I have ever had posted out of all of the videos that are up on the channel. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Of course, you guys guessed it, I am returning to command the Prussian army once again. I can't get enough of this particular faction, guys. If for those of you who don't know your history, the Prussians are the same as the Germans. So we have a Germanic alliance going on here between the Prussian Empire and the Austrian Empire. And we are taking on an old enemy of Germania, Gaul, otherwise known as France, the Grand Army. That's right, folks. We are coming to the battlefield today at the Pyrenees Peaks map, facing off against Onkoyo, who is in command of the French army, and Leopolis, who is also in command of the French army. We'll go ahead and take a look at the battlefield just to kind of get an understanding of where we're going to be fighting, where we can expect the action to occur. So as you can see, Clarkimedes and I are starting out on these lowlands here. Separating us and the enemy, you can see the French flags way off in the distance there, is this hill in the middle of the map, dominated by a tiny little village. So this is going to be a contentious point on the battlefield in fighting for control over the high ground here, because whoever maintains control of this hill has domain over the surrounding lowlands. And if you can get artillery battery up here, which there are artillery in this particular game, in this particular battle, the limit was 2 artillery pieces per team, or excuse me, 2 artillery batteries per team. So you're going to see a lot of artillery action in this game. You're going to see a lot of embarrassing mistakes with artillery, but you're going to see just how vital artillery is to a battle like this. And that was very significant during the actual time period where Napoleon truly revolutionized the use of the cannon, whereas before it was used as a siege weapon, and then when Napoleon came around, it became used for more of providing an additional degree to an army's lethality on the battlefield. So I'm rambling a little bit there on history, but anyway, you're going to see artillery in practice here in this fight today on this particular battlefield. It's going to be exciting. Like I mentioned before, we have Onkoyo, who is in command of the French. Onkoyo is on the enemy right flank, and then Leopolis, who I am directly facing off, is in command of the French on the left flank. We're going to open up the tactical map again just one more time, just so that you all can get an understanding of what exactly is going on the battlefield. To give you an understanding of who each side is, we are in the red. We are the red dots, and the French are identified by the blue indicator lights. This is the hill that I was referring to just a second ago, this little village right here. This is the center hill that we are going to be fighting over. I'm sorry, the French are the red. My apologies, guys. The French are the red indicators on the map, and the Prussians and the Austrians, myself and Clarkimedes, are the blue indicators on the map. So like I was saying before, this hill is going to be a contentious spot on the battlefield that is directly in the center of the map. And as you can see, as the topography spreads out, you get into more lowlands here throughout the majority of the map. You do have some hills that are kind of outstanding, and you can withdraw to those hills if you want to take up another position on high ground. Sometimes it is nice to have an artillery piece up on these hills. But we're going to see what our enemy does, and we're going to figure out if you don't take command of the hill, what is the next best strategy. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick this battle off. Well, actually, before we even do that, we're going to run through, I always forget the army compositions, man. We're going to run through some army compositions just so we can kind of get an understanding of what we've brought to the field. So starting off with my Prussian army, I have brought with me 1 unit of general staff, 3 units of Silesian Schutzen, 3 battalions of Silesian Schutzen, 1 unit of Jaegers. Those 2 previously mentioned units are skirmishing units. They have a little bit longer range than your traditional rank and file line infantry. I brought with me also to the battlefield 5 regiments of musketeers. There those guys are, gorgeous looking blue uniforms. I brought with me to the battlefield 1 battalion of grenadiers. There are these guys right here. These guys can lob grenades into enemy lines. They are very lethal in melee combat. I brought with me 2 units of foot guards. They are lost somewhere in this cavalry blob here, but they are the elite line infantry of the Prussian military. 2 units of cuirassiers. They are heavily armored cavalry units. There they are. Oop, that's awkward. There they are, right there. Brought with me 2 units of cuirassiers. 1 unit of the 6-pound horse artillery. There they are. These guys right here. They are all the artillery in this game is drawn by horses, so that can be kind of confusing, but to give you a better understanding of horse artillery, they are lighter guns that can be transported at a faster rate on the battlefield, and they're drawn by a team of horses. So I brought with me 1 battery of the 6-pound horse artillery, and I have also brought with me 1 battery of the 7-pounder howitzers. So that is the composition of the Prussian army. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Austrian army commanded by Clarkemeades. Clarkemeades has brought with him today to the battlefield 1 unit of general staff, 4 units of Grenzers. There they are right there, spread out in loose formation. These guys are the skirmishing units for the Austrian Empire. He brought with him 8 regiments of German Fusiliers. These guys are your rank and file line infantry unit for the Austrians. These white uniforms blend in real nicely with the snow. So he's got a little bit of a camouflage army going on in here. Let's hope if that aids him in the battle in any way. He's also brought with him 1 1st Regiment of the Emperor's Own. That is an elite unit of the Austrian faction. He's brought with him 1 regiment of the Archduke Charles Legion, 3 units of Uhlans. Those are your spear cav, your shot cav. These guys are really powerful and really good for quick lightning strikes against your opponent on their flanks. And he also has brought with him today to the battlefield 2 batteries of the 6-pounder foot artillery. And there is, again, one of the reasons why I don't really like that they include the terminology horse artillery in this game, because that can get confusing with regular foot artillery, which also happens to be drawn by horses. Anyway, here you have your 2 units of the 6-pound foot artillery there in the front, and he is going to deploy those as quickly as he can to his front to try and combat the French, because the French here also have artillery of their own. We're going to go ahead and take a look at who Clarkemeades is facing off of. This French army is commanded by Oncoyo of France, and he is bringing with him today to the battlefield 1 unit of general staff, 4 units of chasseurs, which is the French skirmishing unit. These guys are really nice looking. He has also brought with him today to the battlefield 7 regiments of Fusiliers of the line. These guys are your typical rank and file units for the French foot infantry. He has brought with him today also to the battlefield 1 unit of the 6th Regiment d'Infanterie Légère, which is an elite infantry unit of the French army. There they are right over there. And he has also brought with him today to the battlefield 1 regiment of the Polish Legion, and he has also brought to the battlefield 2 battalions of the Cheval Léger Lancers, which is a Lancer Cav, and he has also brought with him today to the battlefield 1 unit of the 5th Regiment de Hussars. There they are right over there. Gorgeous looking uniforms. And also brought with him today to the battlefield 1 unit of Chasseurs à Cheval, and he has brought with him 2 teams of the 8-pounder foot artillery. These guys are very lethal. France has some of the best artillery in the game. As I mentioned before, Napoleon had, in historical terms, revolutionized use of artillery, so it makes sense that the French has the best artillery in this game. We're gonna go up to Leopolis' army, who I am facing off on the enemy left flank of the battlefield. Leopolis has brought with him a more diversified army today to the battlefield. He has brought with him 1 unit of general staff, 2 units of voltigeurs, 1 unit of chasseurs. Voltigeurs are also also a skirmishing unit for the French. I believe they're hidden in the trees right now, so that's why we can't see them. He's brought with him 2 units of Swiss foot. There they are right over there in their gorgeous-looking red uniforms. He's brought with him 4 units of the Polish Legion. These guys are consistent of his entire line infantry contingent. So we do not have any regular French troops on the battlefield with us. This is entirely foreign legion. He has also brought with him today to the battlefield 1 unit of the Young Guard and 1 unit of the Old Guard, the Emperor's elite infantry units. These guys in real life were true to form, as the game depicts. Very tall, very intimidating, and they wore those black plumed hats to add an intimidating factor to their presence on the battlefield. They were some of Napoleon's oldest and most elite and experienced infantry units on the battlefield in real life. He has also brought with him today to the battlefield 2 units of dragoons. He has brought with him 1 unit of the Grenadiers à Cheval, which is an elite horse cav unit. These guys, I believe, they're like the mounted old guards, so their uniforms look similar. I'm not real familiar with them. And he has also brought with him today to the battlefield. He neglected to bring a 2nd piece of artillery. He is only bringing with him 1 battery of the 6-inch howitzers. So there we are, guys. We have our army compositions. We're going to go ahead and kick this off, and we are off to the races. So I threw my cavalry out in front because I wanted to be sure that I got to that hill first. Clark and Meade's cavalry was a little bit further in the back, but he did manage to get some cav pushed out forward. He is going to go ahead and push forward a little bit off to the side of this hill, try and scout it out, see if any infantry units are going to come out this way. If he does get skirmishers, if the French player does get skirmishers out here, then it is going to be a little bit of a problem for us to get any substantial presence on this hill. But when you throw cavalry out in front like this, you kind of scout out the battlefield, see if there are any hidden units that are hiding in the trees out here beyond deployment zones, and you'll be able to get set up in a more efficient manner. Clark is going to go ahead and scout out the tree line, see if there's any enemy units hidden up here. I'm going to go ahead and race my horse artillery up to the top of this hill. We're going to try and get this battery in a good position so that way we can lay down some suppressing fire on the opponent as quickly as we can. Onkoyo is going to go ahead and set up his battery, knowing that he won't be able to reach that hill, the center hill, in time for his cannons. He is going to go ahead and position his battery up here at the crest of this small adjoining hill to try and lay down some counter fire against the Austrians that are quickly moving up on the left slope of this hill. Leopolis is going to take his time maneuvering his troops, getting them into position. He is going to throw his 6-inch howitzer out in front, get him as close as they can to get within range of my troops as we are beginning to take position up here on this hill. So it's safe to say now that we have established dominance up here, we are going to sit here as best as we can and wait until we are met with any French advance. Clark and Meade's going to stretch his lines out in a long-like fashion. He is going to set up a position not just on top of the hill, but he's also going to try and take a position along this small ridge down here, just beneath the hill, to stave off any French flanking maneuvers, because he does see the French cavalry that is slowly creeping their way out behind these buildings and onto this pike. And if he gets cavalry out here and he has a wide open flank, then the French cav can just swing right around and attack the units from the Austrian units from the left flank and outflank them pretty quickly. My skirmishers are coming online. These guys are quick to move on the battlefield, so we're going to go ahead and get those guys set up in a good vantage point. That way we can stave off the French advance, because Leopolis is really taking his time. He's not really maneuvering too fast. His skirmishers are running, but his line infantry is taking their time, which might be a good decision. You don't want to exhaust your troops in the beginning of the battle here. You want to save their energy because there is going to be a fight. All right, we do have some cavalry taking up position down here beneath the hill. I noticed this, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a battalion of cuirassiers. I'm actually going to throw all of my cavalry after them. And we're going to go try and scare them off. I'm not really looking for an engagement just yet, but I do want to send the French cavalry running, and that is exactly what he is going to do. He's going to get those light cavalry units out of there, and we are going to pull back because what we don't want to do is get caught in the crossfire between these cavalry down here and also his line infantry. Now we do have some shots being fired. The first shots of the battle have opened up. I believe those may have very well been misfire. Oh, we did have a little charge here. Oh, I think that's the artillery. Okay, so Onkoyo has now got his artillery set up in position. There they go, look at that. And he is going to start shelling the Austrians as they get into position here. Clarkemeades is in for a rough little ride ahead. All quiet here on the right Prussian flank, on my flank. Leopoldus is still taking his time, getting his troops into position, which is not a bad thing. You really don't want to, you don't want to burn the energy on your troops. And in fact, I think Leopoldus is going to get the first shot off with his artillery. Let's see what he does. There he goes. So the first shot has been fired. So the French artillery contingents have had the first shots fired. The French are now getting their skirmishers into position. And here we go, guys. The battle has now opened up on our right flank, and the French have a really good position on us. My guys, I was a little frustrated about this, and I did not see this as a potential problem. I did not see all those skirmishers there, but my skirmishers got caught in a really awkward position, and unfortunately, we did take some pretty heavy casualties from that brief engagement over the first couple seconds there. Over here on the center, things are holding pretty well. Not too much action over here. We are going to get our cannons set up, and we are going to answer the shots that Leopoldus is sending down on our troops. We're going to follow those shots, see where they land. There we go. So we have now returned fire against the French artillery, and we are in full engagement. I'm going to throw a battalion of my cuirassier. This was actually a pretty stupid decision of me. Because watch what's going to happen to these guys. These guys are going to get pommeled. Oh, poor guys. To be quite honest, I wasn't really paying much attention to how many troops were back here, but these cavalry's going to get demolished here. Unfortunately, I am going to lose that cav unit pretty quickly. That was a pretty pitiful mistake on my end. We are doing really good with our artillery, though. Leopoldus had the first shot fired off, but he is not really hitting as many of my guys as I am with my own, against his with my own artillery. So this is going to be a really interesting artillery engagement. Let's go ahead and take a look, because we do have a little bit of engagement going on here on the far left flank. Clarkemeades is getting his troops into position. He is using the trees as protective barrier against the French skirmishers. That is smart, that you can't take as many casualties that way, because you do have the trees acting as a buffer for your troops. So this is a really good position by Clarkemeades. However, he does need to be careful drawing his troops out into the lowlands like this, because the French in this position do have the high ground. So he does need to be careful for any advances he tries to throw out. The French are pushing forward heavy. This is kind of interesting, and I was a little curious. You don't really want to do this, guys. You don't want to bunch your regiments up like this, because his chasseurs are shooting at my skirmishers. He's got this first rank of Swiss foot that's opening fire, or excuse me, Young Guard that's opening fire against my skirmishers. He's got three regiments that are bunched up like this. You have one shell that lands in this blob, then that is going to be a bad day for you, as that just did. Look at that guy. So, oh my God, look at that. The casualties that he took from that one shot alone. Not good. So he's bunched his troops up in this blob here. That makes really easy pickings for my artillery as we open fire. And there we go. We shoot off another round. So the French are in a really awkward position here. He really needs to be vigilant about this. The French are returning fire against my own lines. He is starting to target my line infantry. We are getting our regiment set up here now, so we are going to open fire here against these guys very shortly. Gorgeous, gorgeous.
The men of the peace must rest a while.
He's also throwing a unit of Swiss foot up on top of the hill. This regiment is isolated, so this is going to be a little bit of a problem, but I know exactly what he's going for. He's going for this opening in between the end of my lines and Clark and Meade's lines with the skirmishers here. He's trying to make a run for this artillery. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug that gap. We're going to throw 2 regiments of musketeers, our reserves, up in front of this artillery. We're going to drive the French back because he is not stopping. He is going to charge into the breach, and if he gets through, he is going to drive a wedge in between my forces and Clark and Meade's, even though it's only 1 regiment. The French have resorted to just an all-out bayonet charge up this hill. I really don't know why he decided to do this, but an interesting tactic. I guess it might work if you decide to rush these troops. Holy cow, look at that. Oh my God, this is a mess. Oh, these guys are taking a beating here. We are going to fall back because our artillery is starting to shoot a little closer to our lines here. So we are going to pull back into the safety of the tree line here. That way artillery can get a better vantage shot over the troops that are out in this open field. We aren't really targeted by our own guns. We're going to take a look over here, see what's going on. Looks like the French did throw in a cav assault to try and take out that artillery piece. Clark and Meade's noticed this. He formed square in the tree line. This is really good tactics, really good response to the cav charge. And the French are out-positioned here. He has thrown his troops into a pretty interesting situation, so he is going to go ahead, get those cav out of there, and he is going to try and reform his troops and try and go for a counter-assault. Meanwhile, on the far left flank, we do have some interesting maneuver going on here. We have France's cav, Onkoyo's cav, bulking up here as if though he's getting ready for a cav charge. What he's probably doing is trying to kite Clark and Meade's forces to draw him out even thinner. Because what he wants to do, from the French perspective, he wants to draw the Austrians out in such a wide manner so that way he can just roll his cav around and ride the wave, running up these lines through the trees all the way up to the top of the hill back to the center. Let's take a look at what's going on over here on our right flank. Leopoldus' troops are just getting decimated. My artillery is landing shot after shot on these regiments here. This is getting to be I mean, look at the fields. The snow is just red here. Okay, it's not red, but you get the point. You get the point. There's a lot of death out in this field. So if I were Leopoldus, I'm not sure. Oh my gosh, I am not sure why he did this. This was too easy for my artillery. He is doing a good job. He is getting my guys into melee, and the French are really good in melee, particularly units like the Swiss foot. They have a really solid melee bonus, but he's losing a lot of guys too. Already, he's lost nearly 3 regiments of troops just by bunching his troops up like this. And my artillery is not slowing down either. We are going to continue to drive these troops back with our musketeers. We are going to commit another unit of reserves here relatively shortly to try and plug the gap and really drive any wedge that we can into these lines. See, this is part of the danger here. My artillery is shooting really close, danger close to my lines, so expect some friendly fire out of this engagement. We are going to throw another unit of cuirassiers in to try and clean up the mess here. We're going to drive a wedge in between these French regiments and try and push them back. We are going to be successful in that charge. We're going to push the French into a really awkward position, drive them out. They are losing morale, so this is a good thing for us. We want to get them off of our backs because too many assaults like that and you will have holes in the line here. So we really want to try and keep ourselves from getting in melee as best we can. Leopoldus is going to commit his troops to another front of the battle here. He's going to throw a unit of the Old Guard into position here and try and take some shots off of my skirmishers. He is going to be successful here, but we are going to bring our troops up and meet the Old Guard because these guys, you don't want to go toe-to-toe with these guys. You want some support. So we are going to try and bring in some support here, try and drive the Old Guard off of our backs as best we can. Leopoldus, a good push in the center, a madman push to the center, rather. But unfortunately, it is not going to be enough. Now, he is going to break our cuirassier. That is unfortunate. I wasn't really paying much attention to that. But at this point, Leopoldus' main push is starting to waver. I just need to stop shooting at my own lines. That would help. All right, France doing exactly what he wants to have happen to Clark and Meade's lines. So you'll recall that Clark and Meade's lines were basically following this tree line all the way out here. But Clark and Meade's was beginning to become a little bit hasty. He was a little worried about this French cav that was slowly scoping out his side, his flank rather, his left flank. So per both of our instructions, we decided to pull his flank back to the security of this ridge line right here. That way it will be a lot harder for the French cav to throw any sort of surprise flank, because this way Clark and Meade's has eyes on 2 fronts. He has eyes on the front of the French reserve column that's sitting up here on this hill, paired with these 2 batteries, and Onkoyo's cavalry contingent that is beginning to skirt the far left flank of our lines. So we are going to fall back into a more of a defensive position and reconsolidate our lines. The madness continues to ensue down here. Clarkemead's throwing in a unit of Uhlans to try and drive some confusion into the French lines. That is going to be successful. And look at the carnage here, guys. Look at how many troops Leopoldus lost. All of this primarily from artillery barrage. I mean, this was, yeah, it was due to the line battle, but also the unfortunate bunching up of his troops here made for easy pickings for my artillery. So this was a critical decision on part of Leopoldus. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds. And my artillery just isn't giving up. We're going to continue to pummel shells into these guys here. Oh my God, it just doesn't stop, man.
Our men are running, sir.
Now he is going to be successful. He is going to cause some breaks in the line. My artillery making transition over to canister shot. Some of our guns are shooting into the ground, so that is a little bit awkward. We do probably have 1 or 2 guns that are shooting with a clear vantage point against the French column on this side. So it is getting a little tough for us over here because France is doing really good. He has now resorted to cav charge. He is going to try and turn my right flank, but we see this. I'm going to form into square, and the French cav is going to be caught out of position. Unfortunately, though, he's going to brush right on past the square, and oh, poor guys. He is going to charge directly into my Silesian Schützen. I'm going to commit another unit of foot guard over here, but I do not see the French cav on this side until it's too late. We do manage to commit ourselves to square, so we are going to get a good shot off of these guys. If I were France at this point, I'd pull out. He is going to try and overwhelm these grenades with the grenadiers. He might be successful, but we do have concentrated fire on these guys now, so it would be best for him to get out of there and get out of this engagement. No real action over here. We have had some shots exchanged. Unfortunately, Clarkemead has taken some. He's taken a lot. So Clarkemead has taken some pretty hefty casualties over on this front. However, relative to my side, Clarkemead is actually in a really good position here. He's secured his lines. He's tightened up his flank. He's refused his line. Oh, did you guys see that? Cannonball just ripped through one of these regiments. Okay, so he is mostly secure, not entirely secure. But Clarkemead is going to be in a much better position now, positioning his troops like this. He has refused his lines, and he is going to provide some security on the left flank, which is what I really wanted because I did not know how this engagement on this side was going to go down. The French cav are going to continue to try and push around over on this side. Now, I do not have any protection, any security for my artillery or for Clarkemead's artillery over here. So we are a little bit of danger here. I have no troops to protect these sides, so I'm relying solely on the efforts of my squares to try and combat the cav because at this point I've lost my entire cav contingent, which is another reason why I formed these guys into square, try and put down some enfilade fire onto the French cuirassiers, the French dragoons, and that is going to be successful in driving them off, albeit as close as it was. We are going to succeed in driving these guys off. And Clarkemead sees the danger here with the cav now exposing our rear, so he is going to throw 2 units of Uhlans over here, really just to provide security, because the last thing I want to do is to have musket fire pouring into our own guys. So we did manage to rout that unit of dragoons, and it is now back to the foray here. We are going to try and take care of what's left of the French lines, which is really just skirmisher units at this point. So we are going to try and take these guys out relatively quickly, so that way we can redirect our attention from the right flank over here to the left flank, which is beginning to heat up. Clarkemead is still taking fire from these from the artillery pieces up on top of this hill here, and there has not been much engagement over here on this side. If I were the French player, relative to my allies' position, I would begin to make a move, because if I'm looking over, and maybe I'm just not paying attention here, but if I look over here, I see that my ally has pretty much lost his entire army at this point. While it was costly to my troops as well, we did manage to push back the enemy advance enough to the point where we were able to take out a significant number of his troops. So, gosh, the carnage here is just, it's horrible. Makes a grown man cry. So Clarkemead is going to take care of the cleanup effort for me. He is going to commit a unit of Uhlans and drive a wedge into these chasseurs and voltigeurs. That is going to be the end of Leopoldus' skirmishing units, which I was extremely thankful for that he committed that support. And already we are going to commit them to a chain route, and that is going to drive out Leopoldus' troops from the battlefield and knock Leopoldus out of the game entirely. And I believe that was me, that cannon shot just there, so I did, again, do some friendly fire there. So my apologies, Clark. It means I didn't mean to shoot your guys. All right, so Onkoyo needs to make a move. His ally is decimated. His ally is completely gone. It's now entirely up to him. What is he going to do? Is he going to press up against this wide open field? Because that now the Austrians have the high ground advantage here. So I'm not sure if I would necessarily commit my troops to an engagement like that. However, Onkoyo is being smart about this. He is moving his cavs slowly around, trying to scout out what's in front of this hill here. Are there any hidden troops that are hiding out in the snow, in the open? Or is Clark and Meade still, or is Clark and Meade not as strong as he looked? Just keep in mind, he stretched his lines out really long, really thin, giving off the intimidating presence that threatened to enclose the French position. However, unfortunately, Clark and Meade's pulled back. Again, per both of our advice, both of our inputs, we wanted to shore up our defenses in the event that the French launched a counterstrike on our left flank. But now, with the French army defeated on the right flank, look at that, all is calm over here. Nothing's going on. We're not really sure what the French hesitation is now. And Koyo's just sitting here. Perhaps he's waiting for us to come off the hill. It is entirely possible that Clark and Meade is just waiting. Oh, okay. I thought something else was happening on the battlefield. Something does happen over there, which I want to give you guys plenty of viewership because it's pretty crazy. But anyway, it's quite possible that Onkoyo is just waiting.
Now they must break.
All right, so Leopoldus is dead. Leopoldus has lost his general, so the French army on our right flank is gone. But it's quite possible that Onkoyo was hoping and counting on his artillery to drive the Austrians into making the decision of either falling back, giving up the hill, or coming down off the hill and engaging the French lines. In kind of reviewing after my troops had the opportunity to take a rest, I had advised Clark and Meade that his weakest point is in this grove of trees right here. He has a strong presence, albeit while on the low ground. Choosing to come off of this hill to engage them out in the open is going to be risky, but if he chose to drive a wedge into this grove of trees here, that is where hardly any troops are. He's got one regiment of troops that are just kind of chilling over here, not even facing the enemy in the right direction. This would be an opportunity to strike, but he needs to kind of engage quickly because the French player is noticing this. He is going to shore up his defenses here on his exposed left flank now that his ally is gone. So it is a game of cat and mouse now at this point to see who's going to flinch. We do have some skirmishing. That's been going on for quite some time. I believe these chasseurs are shooting into the dirt. But I have now redirected my howitzers towards the left flank to try and take on these guys. Provide just additional support to Clark and Meade while he is continuing to target the French batteries over here. I'm going to redirect my howitzers to do the same. Onkoyo playing it really, really sleekly. So he is slowly going to edge his troops closer and closer to the Austrian lines, taking his cavalry on a wide scouting trip, try and test out, just testing the waters to see what parts of his lines remain open. Clark and Meade is going to see this. He is going to rapidly deploy 2 units of his elite infantry units off to this side. He does get a really good volley off on the French skirmishers that are moving into position here. He's actually going to get some really good volleys. These guys are going to take some casualties. I don't think the French player was planning on getting that close. Clark and Meade is going to slowly tail around, mimicking the French's moves. However, the only problem, and we both recognize this, I think all of our cav contingent, actually no, Clark and Meade's cav contingent is way over here on this side. So the only cav that's left in the battle, the best cav, is commanded by the French. And here we go. This is what I wanted to kind of let you guys be aware of. Obviously, horses can move a lot faster than humans. And the French player, I think, has found an opening that he really wants to exploit. So he is going to drive his chasseurs à cheval and his lancers. Clark and Meade is going to see this. He's going to rapidly deploy square. However, unfortunately, it's going to be too late, and that is not what the French player is going for. He is going to drive his cavalry units off here into the distance, and he has now found the weak point. I have no troops protecting my lines, absolutely none, and the French player notices this. He is going to try and make an effort to silence my howitzers once and for all, And it wasn't until just right when the horses jumped on my artillery pieces did I realize that I had made my mistake. I moved a unit over here, but by the time I got to my cannons, it was too late. The French player drove into my cannons, and he is going to successfully knock them out of the game. Well, I'll let you watch. We're going to form in a square. Try and take as many shots off of these guys as we can. Oh, I was so upset when this happened. And the French player doesn't stop there. He's going to gun for the Austrian artillery, and he is going to knock them out of the game. So Clarkenmeades will have no artillery left. He's going to turn tail, and he's going to target that other battery. This was perfect play on part of the French. Well done, Onkoyo. Well done indeed. My hat goes off to you, sir. You played it well. And the only thing protecting our rear is this one battalion of musketeers now. That's all that's keeping these cavalry from going into the fray. Clarkenmeades is now finally caught up with his cavalry units. Unfortunately, it is too late. His cannons are gone. His guns are silenced. And Clarkenmeades is going to charge into the French cav, and he is going to get those guys out of that mess.
The men of the teams must rest away.
We have a small little cav engagement from the remaining French cav that was hiding in the trees here. Now we do have some shooting going on elsewhere. The French player continuing to shore up his offensive line, slowly inching his way closer and closer to this hill, inviting Clarkenmeades to do something. Now at this point, recognizing that there is no more threats to my troops on this side of the battlefield, I am going to bring my guys around and meet up Clarkenmeades on his right flank. Now I do have my artillery. This was what was so amazing about this. My howitzer crew came back from running. They are not done fighting. They are going to continue fighting for the fatherland. They are going to return to their guns and deliver hell back to the French player for trying to take out the artillery. And this was what was so scary. Because that French cav is still around, hanging around there, causing havoc for both of our guys. And when I saw this, I was really close to freaking out. It was hold on to the edge of your seat kind of freaking out. The French cav is going to get out of that forest, the tree line. He is going to return back to his lines, but I thought he was coming for the kill blow against my artillery crew. My artillery crew see this. I am going to redirect them. They are going to run in the opposite direction. The French cav is slowly, well, I have it on slow motion. They're going to make their way out of the trees. They are walking right now. They're going to quickly move to a gallop. Just take note, guys, how close this is. The French cav, I was for sure that he was coming in to charge and kill off these guys, but they just run on past them. They didn't even see them. These guys are hiding. These guys are hiding in the bushes. Like, quick, man, hide! And the French cav run off into the distance, none the wiser.
The men are fatigued, sir, and must rest a while.
Yes, these guys are fatigued, but they are not going to stop. They are going to return to their guns, and they are going to deliver an answer for that embarrassment 5 minutes earlier. The French player, I'm sure the French player was just ecstatic. He thought that he had a great victory on his hands. He knocked out that howitzer team. It was over. He had artillery command, and he did. I mean, for a while he did. He knocked out the Austrian artillery. Look at this. Clarkenmeades has no cannons left. He has no guns left on the battlefield. Clarkenmeades a little flustered. He is going to commit his troops into the foray, charging against the French right flank. He is going to do a good job. He did do a pretty good job during that cav engagement of taking out some of the French skirmishers, and that is going to put on the pressure that's needed to push the French back and into a defensive position just behind this hill. If Clarkenmeades really wanted to press further on the left flank, that he probably could have. But the real big danger is that artillery, because now Onkoyo has now strategically placed his guns in two critical angles. One battery is facing against the hill, and the other battery is facing against the low ground. So if Clarkenmeades commits his troops too close within range of these 8-pounders, then the French player Onkoyo is quickly able to maneuver these guns, point them directly at Clarkenmead's lines, and he will be able to take some easy shots off at the Austrian lines relatively quickly and in short order. Now the French player, frustrated, he probably saw my howitzer crew returning to the fight. He is going to bring his cav back. However, I have my guys ready. These guys are now the artillery guard. They're going to stand here and they're going to watch for any attempts at breaking our rear again and charging into the Prussian howitzer. So we are going to position our troops again to meet and mimic the angle of the French cavalry, meanwhile providing the protection that's needed for my cannons to quickly reload and continue to put down fire on the French line. So we are going to target his skirmisher units that are down here. I was for certain that I lost those guns. It was so great to get those back. Honestly, guys, it may have been the turning point in the fight. Particularly if the French had driven my artillery from the field entirely, it probably would have changed the outcome of this fight. Now, this was also a really good maneuver. I did not even see this happening until the French walked up right behind my lines. This had to have been a unit of Leopoldus' troops that came back from routing, but we quickly met them with our foot guard, and we are going to drive them from the battlefield. We are going to take them out. It's going to be a second, but these are old guards, so I was a little concerned. I had no idea. They had to have been hiding there in the forest, just waiting for the right time. The French players, man, they've been really good in this game. My hat goes off to them. Onkoyo and Leopoldus, both really good tacticians. They were really solid in their strategic decision-making. Well done to you guys. Well done. The French cav just slowly looking for an opening, hoping that there might be an opening either to charge in and cause some havoc on my lines or go back to take out those two remaining howitzer pieces. However, it's not going to be that easy. I'm not giving up ground like that this time again. I am going to form square with my men. However, unfortunately, I think I am shooting some of these guys in the back. However, we want to be sure that we're staying. Oh, I know why. Because the French cav charged up on the front. Okay, so he's trying to sandwich us. Yeah, well done. Surgical strikes by these guys. Okay, so this was what was also frustrating. I think, okay, so he managed to bug out my artillery in this fight. So I had another artillery piece that was in this game. I forgot about the horse artillery. He is going to cause these guys to rout from the field. The guns are going to stay there. So are the crew. But these guns are no longer shooting. I have no idea what happened. A glitch in the game, but these guns are now out of commission, unfortunately.
Our men are running.
So we have successfully routed that French cav in our front. We do have the French cav over here in the rear, and the Old Guard have now commenced in melee against Clarkenmead's German Fusiliers. So it's a battle of the wills now. Who will come out on top? And at this point, it's too late to jump into square. It is just an all-out brawl over here in the trees. And right now, that's the only action really that's happening on this front. Over here, just kind of hanging out. Onkoyo is still chilling behind this hill, trying to provide some protection against the artillery. My howitzers are still going at it, trying to shell the enemy center. That has successfully helped in pushing Onkoyo back just a little bit, trying to get them out of the range of my howitzer pieces. So we aren't hitting them as good as we were on the left flank, but we're doing okay. But the French are putting up one hell of a fight. This has been a really good game for both sides. A lot of twists and turns, a lot of good tactics, excellent flanking maneuvers on part of the cavalry units. Who will win? So Onkoyo, realizing the position that he is in now, he is going to get those cavalry units out of there. Unfortunately, Clarkenmead is losing one unit of Grenzers, however, that's okay. They were below half strength anyway. We have pushed back, or nearly pushed back, rather, that French unit of Old Guard. They are still putting up a fight, but they are now up against my foot guards, which are still at about half strength, and there we go. The French Old Guard from Leopoldus' army, the last regiment left of Leopoldus' troops, have now been pushed back entirely. Leopoldus has no more well. Okay, maybe he forgot about these guys. Oh. Just kidding. I don't know what's going on with those guys. Leopoldus is gone. So the French ally has been pushed back off the field. It is now 1.5. A 1.5 versus a 1. Now, Clarkemeades is beginning to run out of ammunition. Keep in mind, during this entire battle, these skirmishers were duking it out against one another. So Clarkemeades recognized that he was running low on ammunition, but probably so were the French. So we're getting to a point now where desperate times call for desperate measures. Oh, that guy did a somersault. Desperate times call for desperate measures. He is going to commit his troops to melee. He is going to shore up his defenses over here as the French are beginning to make a push uphill. He is going to put down some suppressing fire down on his flank, try and drive them back. Clarkemeades is in a really good position. He's got some troops hanging out here in reserve in case he needs to plug in holes in the lines. He can. In the meanwhile, Onkoyo still is being indecisive with his actions. So he needs to make a decision on what he is going to do because time is of the essence here. Right now, my troops are still kind of exhausted, but we are bringing them up, trying to draw them online against Clarkemeades' right flank. So it's a game of, it's no longer a waiting game. It's either commit or fall back into a defensive position, and Onkoyo really isn't doing either of those. So, I mean, think about it. Austria has a concentration of his troops over here on the French center. The French player has his troops drawn out in a line way out into the far distance. If there is any danger, any hole in his line, it is going to take a long time for Onkoyo to redirect his troops and try and plug his line. So it's a decision that I can see the wisdom in, but also you have to recognize, oh, okay, this was another sad development. So Clarkemeades, I don't know where he's at. Okay. So rest in peace to Clarkemeades' general. Another loss in this battle. Clarkemeades lost his general due to enemy artillery fire. Unfortunately, that is like the last thing that you want to have happen to your troops. And we did not have a clue that this was going on, but the French player, again, another surgical strike. If you can't win the entire battle, then win small victories. So, did you notice? Okay, so my general is now sitting here, just shot at this house that just got destroyed. He's targeting for my general now. So, the French player is going for every opportunity that he can to try and get a single bit of advantage that he can over on our side. So, this French player isn't playing around. He may have lost his ally, but again, like I mentioned before, desperate times call for desperate measures. He is going to try and gun for our generals, and he successfully sniped Clarkemeades' general, which was a pain. I remember that when that happened in the game. A collective groan amongst the both of us. So unfortunately, he did lose his general there. But thankfully, that didn't affect his morale too much. But it always is a blunder when you do lose your general because you no longer have the ability to inspire your troops. So the only opportunity left for a morale boost is within my general. So let's see if we can keep him alive throughout the rest of this engagement. Quite frustrated at that, Clarkemeades is going to maneuver his troops into an engagement position, try and take on the French as they are holding out here just behind this hill. Clarkemeades is going to commit another depleted ammunition unit of Grenzers into the melee combat while he is bringing up his line infantry to close in for the kill.
One of our units has used all its ammunition, sir.
So I'm going to throw my foot guards into melee against this unit of Fusiliers in the line on the far right flank. And we are going to do everything we can, like I was mentioning to him before, that this is the weak point right here in the center. He's got all of his troops positioned over here, and just now, only now, does the French player realize the danger here that we are trying to exploit. So he is going to deploy 2 regiments of troops all the way from his right flank and reposition them up here in the top of the center. Is it enough? Will he get there in time to plug this gap? He is throwing in his cavalry unit to try and repel the Prussian advance over on this side. He is going to succeed in doing so. Unfortunately, that is going to crush my foot guard unit. That is a shame because they were a good unit. So now it's a matter of, can the French redeploy his troops in a quick enough fashion to plug the holes that are quickly forming in his lines. We are trying to exploit every opening that we can, but again, we are losing troops ourselves. Clarkemeades losing a regiment of German Fusiliers from this attack. The French are doing a really good job, even though they're on the low ground, pushing up along the basin here, trying to push up against the Austrian lines to create a hole of our own. But Onkoyo is not going to commit entirely to that. He's going to pull off two relatively healthy units of French Fusiliers, again, to shore up his defenses in the center here, because we have succeeded in driving a wedge into the tree line here. We are going to push the French regiments that are in this clump of trees back, and we're going to force the French to reconfigure and reform their lines. The howitzers are now back online. I don't know why they stopped shooting just a second ago. Pyrenees is going to continue to bring his troops around, closing in on a flanking position over here on the French. He is going to do a really good job at taking out this unit of Fusiliers of the line. They are outflanked and outpositioned, so again, Onkoyo, a little bit too late, my friend. He recognized that he was outpositioned and he had his troops just a little too far away from where all the action was on the battlefield. Now, we do not have enough troops, and one of the reasons why I need to explain this is because he's bringing up a ton of reserves here. They were engaged, but they were on the far right flank. He's bringing up a ton of troops up here into the position here. All of my guys that were charging into this tree line here, they are out of ammunition, so they have no ability to respond to any French aggression should they choose for a counter-assault. If I had my troops that were stuck in here while this French player contributed troops into the forest region here, that would drive us back, and the battle would be over pretty quickly. So Onkoyo is having to make some decisions here. Where can he deploy his troops in the best fashion? That way he can watch the left side and his right. Pyrenees, while he took a pretty big blow this battle, he is still in a strong position here to drive off the French. He's got some pretty healthy regiments that have, for the most part of the battle, were just kind of chilling up here while the French player was chilling down at the bottom. So in a way, it's almost a 1v1 now at this point. I have some healthy regiments that are left, but it's not enough to meet up to par with this French army on its own. So it's predominantly going to be an Austrian fight here. So unlike the French, who failed to recognize that they were overextended twice in this engagement, Pyrenees is going to shore up his defenses. He is going to concentrate all of his troops up here on this hilltop here. That also came at my recommendation as well, because we both recognized that it was going to be a losing battle if we tried to charge up this hillside up against this wall of French troops. Now, he's going to get some good shots off on these guys, but they are protected by the trees, so we weren't too worried about that. But the big fear and the big worry that we continued to worry about was these artillery pieces. They are healthy, and unfortunately in Napoleon, they do not have limited ammunition. So these guys are going to continue shelling us as long as we sit here and do nothing. So it's a matter of urgency that we make some sort of action relatively quickly. Otherwise, the French are going to pummel us into submission. Who's charging? Onkoyo going to throw his Chevalier Lancers. And he's going to ignore that. He's going to disregard that charge. Nope. Okay, he's going to throw his cav into a brief engagement, trying to drive out the French Grenzers, the Austrian Grenzers. The Austrians see this, and they are going to quickly dispatch this French cavalry unit, and they are going to shatter and break from the battlefield relatively quickly. Pyrenees has now brought up enough reserves that we are going to position himself. He's going to position himself back into this tree line that we had fought so hard for over just a few minutes ago. And he is going to use the trees as protection, as a barrier rather, against enemy munitions and ordnance as they're put downrange. We do have some French regiments that are hanging out here. Now it's just a wait-and-see game. Pyrenees continuing to consolidate his forces for the final push. Meanwhile, my guys here, on the other hand, we're hanging back, trying to collect our breath. I mean, we have been fighting an intense battle all over this. While we're waiting, just take a look. Just Some sorrowful music needs to be playing over this montage because this is just depressing. What a loss. Koyo continuing to mirror the movement of the Austrian player. Clarkemans is going to throw some Grenzers up just beyond the tree line, just enough to a point where he can take on these guys. I think he actually may have meant to send them in for a melee charge. I'm not entirely sure what he's planning on doing with these guys. Our howitzers continuing to rain shells into the French line. I can't believe it, man. How, like, if this howitzer crew was defeated, then it would almost have been a non-negotiable matter to push up almost immediately, and we were not ready for that. So pretty incredible that our howitzers survived that charge. Clarkemans now bringing his line infantry to deliver the final engagement. But Onkoyo is really strong here. It's going to take a lot to break these healthy lines. Can he do it?
Units has used all its ammunition, sir.
Now we do have a charge going on. So again, recognizing that some of our guys are out of ammunition, we are going to begin the process of triaging our units and figuring out which ones are the important ones that we want to keep and which ones are the ones that we're okay with losing. So we're going to try and throw in as many units as we can into the foray here. Try and draw the enemy into a distraction, keeping them from focusing on the center while we're doing some flanking maneuver. Now, I was convening with Clarkemans in game, and I believe that during this engagement, at this point in the engagement, I had one unit that had ammunition left. The other three that I had on the battlefield had no ammunition. Now I almost had no units. But as we were discussing, we had brought up the idea that if we use a diversion to try and draw the French's attention away from the center engagement or away from any flanking maneuvers, then where their attention was not focused, we would be able to throw down some sort of surprise attack, try and draw their attention away from the engagement. So we are going to throw in a depleted ammunition unit of Prussian musketeers. Unfortunately, they are sacrificed, but that gives him enough time to focus on what's going on in the center to not really pay much attention to what was going on his left flank. We have three visibly healthy-looking regiments of troops that are taking a position over here on this side. However, the French artillery does not fail to miss this. So he is going to redirect his artillery, and they are going to pommel, they are going to shell these poor guys down here on the lowland. So we need to act quick, because if we don't, then we are going to lose the element of surprise here with this flank. But I think out of these guys that are maneuvering down here on this side, I only think one of them has ammunition. So we weren't entirely sure what the French's position was on ammunition, but we were pretty certain it hadn't have been much different than ours, because they had been fighting for just as long as we had. So while our flanking is going on, I had instructed Clarkemans to keep the French infantry occupied over here on the right as quickly as best as we could. He is going to throw in one unit of 1st Regiment of the Emperor's Own. These valiant, brave souls that are going to charge in and drive the French back. He is going to succeed in doing so. He's going to push back the entire French position. However, it is going to be a short-lived victory over here on this side. But the French player, again, focusing on the left flank. He is focusing on my units deploying over here on the left, and I believe he failed to see the Austrian push. I mean, look at these guys. There they go. The Austrians have now broken through the French center, and we are going to drive a hole and silence these French guns once and for all. And we are going to rapidly crush the French center, and in doing so, we are also succeeding in crushing the French left. French are now running for their lives. The Austrian army coming off of the hills in full ferocity, driving into the faces of the French army. And it is quickly turning out to be a Germanic victory against the French. A glorious bayonet charge. The French general rallying his troops for the final standoff. Our depleted units, these guys are exhausted. They've been running around all day fighting the French, and they are ready to win one for the fatherland. Our howitzers raining down death from above.
Our men are running, sir.
The French general trying to salvage what little reputation he has left. There he is, look at him. Old men. Now the French hold, but for how long? Clarkemead still has troops pouring into the center here. French player redirecting his 2 units of Swiss foot and Fusiliers on the line, trying to reconsolidate his troops. However, now he is on the downslope. A horrible mistake. Come on, France. You've been doing good, so good all this battle. Don't do it to yourself, man. Now it's Austria's fight. Prussia has done her due diligence. It's up to Clarkemead now to finish. Wowee, guys. What a fight. To Ancoyo and Leopolis, you all were great opponents. Another great battle in the books. Clarkemead's general staff charging into the French blob, avenging his general's death. The Prussian general charging in, taking out the French general. Whoa, you see that? And the French army is going to fall back. This fight is in the bag, my friends. Well done to everybody. Clarkemead, as always, it's a pleasure fighting with you, my friend. Ancoyo and Leopolis, great opponents. You guys did incredible. Hope you guys enjoyed this fight. It was This one was recorded a few months ago, so it's a little bit more recent in my memory, so I was able to remember some more of the events, unlike the last battle. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for providing support to the channel. Albeit we're small, it's just a little hobby that I enjoy doing, but it's always fun to do these things. And if you guys keep watching them, then I'll keep making them. Thank you guys for watching, and until then, I'll see you in the next one.